Hi all, welcome to another episode, and I couldn't be more excited, to have somebody who's really really special because uh, while a lot of people whom I've spoken to, I found them on LinkedIn, got impressed by their content, but this man kind of takes the cake away, right? It's like so much, so many posts, a lot of content that he's written. I could easily relate, resonate, and kind of 100% agree with him, but only he wrote it in better way. So I thought there's no other approach is to just to request him and come and join me today. Guys, I really really thank you, John, for coming and joining me. While I would like to give you big introduction, but no, better to come from you. So if you'd like to tell everybody about your work, please.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. So, John MacDonald, the founder and CEO of Thegood. We are a conversion optimization firm. So, we convert more visitors into buyers. And we're on a mission to remove all of the bad online experiences until only the good remain. And been doing this for about 14 years or more. And yeah, work with brands like Nike, Xerox, Adobe, The Economist, as well as hundreds of mid-sized brands over that time.
See, guys, I told you, right? I have heard so many people talk about CRO. Never heard the mission statement the way John said. So
Mhm.
yes, okay, you're watching the right season, right episode. That's all I can say. So, John, again, you're out there. You write really
Mhm.
well. You talk, I think, very direct to the point, etc. And one of the biggest thing is that led me to look at your website, what you guys do,
Mhm.
etc., and the great clientele that you guys have. The first line of your website could not be more crystal clear, right? It says that 98% of your website visitors won't buy from you today. I would really like to understand what it means from your perspective,
Mhm.
and also would like to tell you that most of the guys I speak to, they do not understand this.
Mm. Yeah. Well, look, with what we're trying to do is two different things. One is make sure that the pain is aligned. When somebody comes to our website, we immediately want them to understand how we're going to help them and what pain we're going to solve for them. And I think every e-commerce website, a lot of B2B and even SaaS websites struggle with this, where you go to their site and you have no idea what pain they're solving with their product or service. And if you can help me. And really, I'm a firm believer for a decade plus now, as I said, that people are only coming to your website for two reasons, and that's to understand if you can help solve their pain or need, and
Yeah.
if you can, to convert as quickly and easily as possible, and then get on with their lives. That's really it. So what we decided was by using the line that 98% of your visitors won't buy from you today, what we're saying is immediately if that resonates with you, then you're in the right spot and you should continue. If you're saying, I already have enough conversions, I have enough people who are buying, I'm not worried about only converting 2%, fine. Like, then we're not going to be able to help you unless you think that you need that help. So it really is a way for us to draw a line in the sand and say, yes, you should cross it, or no, you're not going to. And in which case, that's fine. But we don't want to waste your time and our time. So want to state that right up front.
And that makes out and out sense, and I completely agree with the struggling part. I think being the founder of Kui, I think our website just doesn't do justice to what we do. I think we still haven't found out the right positioning. We still don't have the right
Mhm.
messaging. Is it very clear when somebody comes to our website? Absolutely no. So it's a continuous learning process,
Of
right?
course, of course.
And working with different segments and targets,
Mhm.
but I have never found any e-commerce brand that said, "Hey, I'm happy with my conversion rate."
Mhm. Right.
Right? And something which is really which worries me, and not in a very nice way, because we've been talking about deep tech and AI and all those
Mhm.
intelligent ads, right? Now, when Facebook and Instagram and TikTok can do targeting, can do whatever. In the past decade, and you know this better than me because you've been in the industry much longer, the intelligence with the way ads are being shown is
Hmm.
drastically gone up,
Yeah.
but the conversion rate on an average hasn't gone up in the past decade.
Right.
And is it because still a large part of this whole e-commerce setup is all about acquisition and less on
Mhm.
engagement and retention? What do you think?
100%. And I think the reality is that brands look at Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, et cetera, as an ATM. So if they put their card in, their credit card in, they're expecting cash to come out. And they know every time they put their card in, they're going to get more cash out. Now, sometimes that return on that ad spend, it may be 1 to 1. They put $20 in, they get $20 in sales. It may be 2 to 1. They're going to put $20 in, they're going to get $40 back. So they never know what that is going to be, but they know I'm going to get cash back. And more often than not, the algorithm is tuned enough that I'm going to get more than I put in. I'm going to get a return on that ad spend. The challenge is that leaders and even e-commerce experts, I would say too, have the thought that I'm just going to continue to spend because I know it's predictable. I know I can spend to drive traffic. And it's a whole industry that has been there for decades and decades. Search engine optimization, ads, all of that, right? Here's the challenge. Once you get somebody to your website, your marketing has won. It's done its job.
Yeah,
At that point, you really need to step back and say, now how do I serve the customer? And it's a different mindset that while conversion optimization does have a lot of data behind it, you can run A B tests, you can track all the data to understand what changes are making meaningful differences, and even calculate things like annualized revenue. The challenge really becomes that leadership, executive leadership, often does not support conversion optimization in the same way they do ads because they don't understand it. They don't understand the return. They
yeah,
think that it's just a checklist that
yeah,
you can deploy. And it also often challenges a lot of their assumptions. So, for instance, there's this great saying, it's hard to read the label from inside the jar. And what I mean by that is brands are stuck in a jar
yeah,
and they have the impossible task of trying to understand what it's like to visit their website as a new to file customer. So somebody that they found via ads that has never heard of them before, but they clicked on the ad because they were intrigued. What is that experience like for the consumer once they get to the site?
yeah,
More often than not, there's a disconnect there for two reasons. One is the ad comes in and it has a message that is not in alignment with the message on the website. So they click on the ad, they get to the site, and they say, where am I? What am I doing here? They
yeah,
told me I had this problem in this
yeah,
ad that resonated. I got to the website and they're pushing me on a new product, and I don't even know why I care about the brand yet. Or
yeah,
they want to tell me their brand story. Look, I'm not here to learn about you. I'm here to solve my pain or need.
yeah,
And that's it. So the second thing is that often websites are more influenced by internal stakeholders, the executive leadership team, the e-commerce management team,
yeah,
than they are by actual customers.
yeah,
The problem with this is that you end up with a website that has a brand talking about themselves. It has consumers left without really clear understanding of what solves that pain or need. And a brand is the worst. That internal team is the worst stakeholder for redesigning a usable, high converting website because they know everything about the products. They know all the products they sell. They know how they're organized. They have mission of things they want to communicate,
yeah.
but they're not willing to take a back seat to what the consumer needs, and that just creates a big disconnect.
there was this I think cartoonish graphic I came across a few months
Hmm.
back, and there's a person surfing on his desktop. A TikTok ad shows something else,
Hmm.
Facebook and Twitter, and as soon as they land on the website, they're like, "Hey, this looks completely I had not even thought of." So,
Yeah.
completely resonating with what you said. Um, yeah, I don't even think a lot of those brands take CRO very seriously.
Hmm.
First of all, I think a lot of them think CRO is very gimmicky. It's all about how fast the site loads and is it mobile
Hmm.
responsive, etc. But it's so much more, and it has to be so much data driven, right?
It should
Uh,
be.
so
And if I
yeah,
may interject really
yeah,
quickly,
please.
the challenge with that is that conversion optimization has really become commoditized. And what I mean by that is there are thousands of individual um, contractors, if you will, individual service providers out
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
saying, using lead gen tactics like get my massive spreadsheet of checklists that you should deploy on your website. And it creates this false expectation that CRO can be a checklist. And I'm a firm believer that best practices are for beginners. If
Hmm.
you are just starting out, yes, make sure you have the best practices in play.
Yeah,
And maybe a checklist could help you understand some of those. But if you're a brand that is spending money to drive traffic to your site and spending lots of money doing it, and lots is relative, right? Doesn't have to be at Nike's level. It could
yeah,
be at a smaller brand's level, but it's a lot
yeah.
of money to them, right?
True, true.
The challenge becomes that you're leaving money on the table by not optimizing your website. And so you really need to be focusing some effort there. And a checklist is not going to get it done. You really need to start involving customers and understanding what are the needs for your very specific use case.
Yeah,
I have a whole chapter about this in my latest book about not copying your competition.
yeah,
And there's an illustration representative of each kind of law, if you will, as I put a law of conversion at the beginning of each chapter. And it's one of my favorite illustrations for that chapter. It's behind the principle in saying that there's a reason that horse races wear blinders, right? You don't want the horses to be looking side to side. You want
yeah.
them looking right at their own
The
goal, get
focus.
to
Yeah,
the finish line. Hmm.
yeah,
And so there's a few horses running, and there's jockeys on top, and each of the jockeys has a laptop, right? And the horses have blinders, but the jockey that's winning also has blinders on.
yeah.
And it's interesting because if you just put your head down and stop worrying about the competition, stop worrying about doing those best practices or whatever you think everyone in your industry is doing, you will win. And that's part, I mean, it could be that simple for a lot of brands.
No, we're gonna talk more about your book for sure, John.
Oh yeah.
Because that excited me as well. I have a few questions that I really want to talk about that. But
Great.
on the whole CRO approach, I think again, I couldn't agree more. And best practices are for beginners is another line that I'm gonna bold underline already sits in my head.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you look at others, but you have to adapt it to your own needs. Your TMS is different, your traffic flow is different, the intent of visitors that coming to your stores are very different compared to different commodities that you're trying to sell. It
Mhm.
requires a lot of customizations. So um, CRO can be a service or an offering, but I think it's still very custom package for every brand, right?
Mhm.
And it doesn't come very it doesn't get applied very effectively in a nice checklist and just like a tick box thing. So okay, now that the conversation is getting interesting, I want to go and you know uh, delve into little controversial side of things.
Hmm.
Let's make it
Let's
more
do it. I
interesting.
love this.
Yeah, I hope to people
The
do
spicier, the
that.
better.
So the first is pop-ups. Okay,
Okay.
I've heard your take about pop-ups. I know a lot of people who detest it. a lot of people who are indifferent, and there's a huge bunch of people, somebody like me, who think that pop-ups are the unnecessary evil in the business, and
Mm.
they do have its own importance, if whatever, right? So what's your take about this oldest thing in the playbook, let's put it that way?
Yeah, it is. I think that because it's one of the first techniques that really came out that grabbed people's attention, it is overused. And I think it gets used improperly. Now, under that context, I would say you shouldn't use pop ups. But
Mhm.
I think there are some opportunities to use them correctly. Exit intent is okay,
Mhm.
but let's think about it as a story. You walk into a retail store, and I'm a sales associate. As soon as you walk into my store, I jump out in front of you with a clipboard and I say, "Hey, sign this.
Yeah,
Check this out."
yeah,
You're like, whoa, hold on. You're
yeah,
going to
yeah,
have a negative reaction at the very
indeed.
least,
Yeah,
right? And you might even be like, what? I don't even know if I wanted to be here. I just saw something that might maybe interested me. And
yeah,
then you turn around and leave because you're so already forgot why you were there,
yeah,
right? Because you got distracted. So really, I think that's how a lot of brands approach it. And I'm a big fan of saying that just because the consumer is you can't see them, right? If they're on the other side of a screen, doesn't mean you should not treat them like a human, right? They're still a human. You should still treat it as if it's a human interaction
yeah,
and take all the same care. But because you can't see that person and they're a number in your analytics,
yeah,
so many brands make the unfortunate decision to just try to convert, try to convert, try to convert. And it has a negative effect. Now, the most common effect of this is, or way people use pop-ups is one of the reasons I have a big issue with them. Most people try to do email pop-ups where they want to capture an email,
yeah,
and unfortunately they do it on the homepage. They do it as soon as somebody lands on the site
landing.
or they start to scroll.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a 3-second timer.
yeah,
All of these things are negatives in my point of view because they hurt the customer experience and they
yeah,
interrupt that person from accomplishing the two tasks we talked about earlier, right? Understanding if this is a product or service that's going to help me. And if so, I want to convert. And
right,
convert does not mean I want to give you my email address so you can stay in touch with me. It
yeah,
means I want to buy the product and get on with my life.
yeah,
Now, the problem I have with email pop-ups, and I hear this rebuttal all the time. But John, I collect emails from it. It works. Maybe. Let's just put that aside and say maybe. Okay. I'm not disagreeing with you. It does collect email addresses.
yeah, let's
Okay.
agree to disagree. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. But let's dive in another step on those emails. You have now put a pop-up in front of people and in a lot of cases made it difficult to say no, or have done something even worse that we call negative intent shaming.
Yeah,
You say, no, I don't like discounts, or no, I prefer to miss out, or whatever the negative, right? You're making me feel bad. You're shaming me for
yeah, the
not giving
language
you my info, right?
always. Yeah,
Yeah. So the problem is, let's just say you do collect emails, and let's say you're incentivizing that with a discount, which is another issue I have, discount pop-ups, and we'll dive into that in a sec
yeah,
perhaps. But these two together are two toxic things for a brand combined. And so you're asking for my email address, and that's the only way to get a discount. And you're making me do this so early in the process that I'm not even sure I want it. And you're hoping that I'm afraid of missing out on that discount. And so I'm going to give you my info so I don't miss out on that discount. The problem is, I'm as a consumer, I'm going to do a couple of different things. One is I'm going to say, okay, I'm afraid I'm going to miss out on that discount. I already have a negative feeling with your brand, right?
yeah,
You've interrupted my flow, and now you're making me feel like I'm missing out on something when I don't even know what I'm missing out on.
yeah,
So you're starting off in the negative with this consumer. Then on top of that, I'm going to give you my junk email address because I don't want you to be in touch with me every day. I don't
yeah,
want you to fill up my work email or any of that. I'm going to give you my old Hotmail address or
yeah,
whatever it is, or I'm going to use that Gmail technique where you put in your email address and then
Yeah.
add plus or period. And then, Gmail knows not to use anything after that character, but
Yeah.
you can filter on it and do whatever. So the problem becomes that brands end up with a whole bunch of junk emails, and they have created themselves an additional problem. They're now sending emails to a bunch of junk emails. Let's assume a lot of those are ending up to Gmail, because they are.
Hmm.
Gmail is, as an aggregate, looking at, you send 1,000 emails to Gmail and only one of those is getting opened, or
Wow.
maybe only two are getting opened and one is getting clicked on. Gmail is tracking all that data. They know that. So now what happens is, even though out of your 1,000 emails, the vast majority ended up in the inbox, after a few hours and nobody is clicking or opening your email, all of a sudden, guess what Gmail's doing? Takes your email out of the inbox and moves it to the spam folder. So when that person does check their email, it's been moved. And or it goes to the dreaded promotions tab,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Any of those are a death sentence for your email. So it just becomes a huge issue where um, it all started with the pop up. It really did. And, in addition to what I just said, too, like, the brand is paying more and more to send these emails, because most of the providers like Klaviyo, et cetera, are charging based on the amount of emails you're sending.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. It's
you're paying
expensive.
even more to send emails that aren't going to resonate and are going to end up in spam and aren't doing you any good. And you've ruined the customer experience to have that privilege of overspending and under delivering your emails.
It's like the vicious circle that you're trying to establish on yourself, which is so counterproductive right from the word go as you land on the website. Oh wow, that's a very good perspective. I didn't think of the latter part of it on the whole spam side of things,
Mm-hmm.
but again, I think it's very it makes complete sense. Um, and something that you just touched upon, which is the second part of the controversy, is
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Hey, I'm a visitor, first time visitor, and brands can very easily find that out. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
not everybody use different sessions and remove cookies and IPs and stuff like that. So I
Right, right.
go and I get this pop up, and it tells me, hey, because you're here today, I offer you a 10% discount, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when comes the Father's Day, which is coming now, or to Valentine's, to etc., 25%, 30%, whatever, and things like, hey, we got so much in uplift in sales. What about margins? So, what's your take on discounts, John?
Oh, um, discounts are evil. And here's why. They don't do anything positive for a brand. And again, just like email pop-ups, brands think, "Hey, you know what? I get more sales when I run sales, when I run
Mhm.
discounts." I'm a firm believer that, as a brand, once you have influenced somebody through discounting, they are forever a discount customer, and they will forever see your brand as a discount brand. Now, what happens is, when you throw that pop-up up as soon as I get to your site, and you're telling me there's a 30% off sale, whatever the number is, 20% off, I immediately, in my head, now believe your products aren't worth what you're charging for them. They are worth the discounted price. They're
Way
worth
less.
20, 30% off.
Yeah,
And there's nothing you can do to convince me your product is worth retail price.
yeah,
It will always be worth that less to me.
yeah,
And next time I come back to you, let's say I do buy, okay,
yeah,
and I want to get the discount again. Guess
yeah,
what I'm going to do? I'm going to go use that secondary email address or third email address that I have and get the discount again anyways. So now we've compounded the issues, because now we still have all that junk email stuff I was just talking about happening, right? With bad emails, charging more to send them, they're converting less. I'm not opening them. I literally just want the discount again. So even though it's for first time customers, yeah, you can be sure I'm opening your site in an incognito browser, and I'm going to enter my secondary email address, and I'm going to check out so I get that discount again. It's just, unfortunately, you're creating more problems as a brand. Now, there's a simple fix for this. Think about it this way. Discounting is subtracting. You're subtracting a dollar off or a percentage off, right? What you really want to focus on is addition, right? What
Hmm.
can you provide to the customer that is going to give them more value, right? So now you're reframing it. It's no longer about my brand, the brand's products are worth X% less. It's I'm being incentivized to buy because I'm going to get something more. So you're not affecting the price of the product. And
Hmm.
this is really almost a psychological play, but it works extremely well. So what are some examples of this? Free gift with purchase.
Hmm.
Maybe it's expedited shipping or free shipping if you don't already offer that, or
Sure.
2-day shipping, right, to match Amazon Prime, things of that sort you can do. Um, you could do something pretty similar like extended warranty, or for really expensive products we've played around with an onboarding call, right?
Hmm.
So hey, you can, when you buy, you can schedule a call with one of our advisors. Will help you set up the product, right? Something a little more technical, et cetera. People who might be worried about that. But there's a lot of things. Think about the value you can add that in most cases is going to either cost you less than that discount, especially with the margins. You buy a pair of shoes, you throw in a free pair of socks. That pair of socks costs you a couple of dollars. You offer 20% off the shoes. That could be $10, maybe more. Who knows? Depending on the shoes, right? So in the end, you're winning twice, because in the mind of the consumer, you haven't devalued your products and you're actually giving them a little more, but it costs you less. So it's a win-win here, and more brands should be thinking about it this way.
Yeah, but why are they kind of looking at the short term gains for the long term thing? Are they looking at that, hey, no, I need to make X
Mhm.
amount of revenue per month and that's all I care about for my numbers? Why don't, because
It's a
I'm sure the
short-term win.
excels, yeah, excels show this margins very clearly, right? So
Yes, but I think it's also the easy button. So many people say, "What can I do to drive sales?" "Oh, I know. I'll run a sale. I'll run a
yeah,
discount." And we're, especially in Western cultures, we're ingrained in that sale philosophy.
yeah,
A lot of Eastern cultures, it's pretty common to have things at regular price, but then you haggle your way down. You
yeah,
negotiate.
yeah,
In Western cultures, you don't see that as often,
yeah,
right? In the US, it's like you're never going to walk into Walmart and take it up there and be like, I know this is $5, but I really only want to pay 3, and you're hoping they'll meet at 4, right? It's not,
yeah,
doesn't work that way, right?
yeah,
And so, you know, what we do to compensate is we just give it away. We just say, here's the sale price, and you're supposed to feel good like you got a deal. But unfortunately, they may feel like they got a deal, but they now know you can afford to sell it to me at that price. So I never want to pay the larger price again.
yeah. Yeah. Funny enough, recently I've just come across a few guys who told me that there are some TikTok communities and Instagram
Hmm.
influencers who kind of talk about famous brands
Hmm.
that if you go and leave something on an abandoned cart,
Oh, yeah.
wait for checkout 20 minutes. Wait for it the next
Hmm.
day and you get a discount coupon. This is insane. As in,
Hmm.
you're conditioning people to that level as well to do things
Yes.
like this, which is maddening.
Yes. I agree. It is maddening. That's a great word for it.
Yeah. Perfect. No, so John, yeah, I really hope that people can understand this perspective that you kind of
Mm.
highlighted today on discounts, because it's definitely the shortcut is the easy way around. But if you're looking for a brand, you need to make sure that every single dollar that you spend, you get two times, three times the cash, because your margin,
Hmm.
marketing costs, etc., are so high.
Yeah.
You can't just
Yes.
keep on giving discounts and surviving. And given that I've heard what you said, and I've been reading a lot of stuff that you write for months now, I'm assuming all this is packed amazingly well in your book that I have to read as well. So,
Yeah.
about your book, John, why the book? How did you think of
Hmm.
doing this? And we would like to
Yeah.
get a little bit inside there, please.
Yeah. I actually have a copy here. It's called
Super.
Opting In to Optimization. And so, a couple of things. One is there's a lot of books out there about tactics, like I said earlier, conversion optimization has kind of become commoditized as a service, meaning there's a lot of best practice lists out there. There's a lot of people saying, I'll come in and just tell you what's wrong with your site, et cetera, right? And they make it seem very simple. The challenge is that they're missing a lot of the core tenets of how should you optimize your site? What should you be thinking about as you go into it? And in fact, a number of years ago, I co-wrote a book that is called Stop Marketing, Start Selling. And the idea behind that was that so many brands, once a consumer gets to the site, they continue to market at that consumer instead of selling to the consumer.
Hmm.
It's a lot of tactics. It's a lot of how you should be involving customers in that journey, right? So it tells you a little bit more of a how to optimize the right way. This tells you, this book, Opting into Optimization, is much more about how you should be thinking, right? How you should approach conversion optimization. And I've mentioned some of that stuff today, like best practices are for beginners, or, don't copy your competition, right? And so I get into why, right? And I'm not talking specific tactics that you should be following. I'm saying this is after a decade plus of optimizing sites. The sites that we've optimized that have done the best, those brands have held these values core to how they do e-commerce. And that's what's in this book. So it is super actionable. It is meant for you to be able to share this book as a way to get your entire team aligned on how you're going to think about growing your e-commerce site.
So it's the perfect combination of what to do plus how to do, rather than people just coming out and talking about all this thing, hey, this whatever, but it
Mm-hmm.
actually tells you actionable strategies that you can
Yeah.
kind of implement for your business, right?
Yeah. The idea behind this is once you've read this book, you're going to be able to look at a checklist and say, do I want to do that item on the checklist? Does it fit with the philosophy of how I should approach CRO?
Makes sense.
And everybody's philosophy is going to be a little bit different. What I'm outlining here is 9 different laws that I believe you should follow to understand CRO better and be able to decide how you want to optimize your site and understand whether those best practices or not are going to work for you.
Super. I'm definitely going to give it a read, and everybody who's listening and going through the podcast, guys, I really suggest you do give it a read as well, because I'm sure by now you would have figured out why I'm asking you to do that, right? Come on. So do that. The So I have two last questions, John. One is
Yes.
more like a surprise, pulling out of the hat that I'm not wearing.
Mhm.
Is You have to tell us something that you've never told anybody.
Oof, I've never told anybody.
So is this like a surprise mystery? Can be anything,
Ooh,
but just for this cheeky factor.
yeah. Let's see. So I'm 6'7". It's hard to tell on a podcast. I play basketball a lot. I played in college. I still play on a competitive travel team. Um, Something I've never told anybody was in middle school. I actually scored on the wrong hoop. I uh, I was we changed halves, and I just my head
Okay.
was not in the game, obviously, and I
Okay.
scored on the wrong hoop. There is nothing more
Yeah.
humbling than doing that.
And that was the day I think John decided no more of these things, and I'm never going to let anybody else do any other mistakes. So let me go and begin the career in CRO. That's it, done. Period. That is awesome, John. That's a funny one for sure. But 6'7", I could have never imagined. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's hard to tell on a podcast and in a virtual call, but if you ever meet me in real life, I'm
Yeah.
hard to miss, easy
I'd
to
love
find.
to. So that's definitely up for takes. And the last one, John, is um, you know I work with a lot of D2C brands
Hmm.
focused on Shopify, right? So there are two segments of the kind of customers or kind of people that I interact with. One of them are very early stage.
Mhm.
They've spent about a year or two in product development, trying to figure out their differentiation factor, etc., etc. And they've just taken their first steps on Shopify and started spending some money to get traffic. Right. So that's one
Mhm.
bucket. And the second bucket is like 3+ years in the business kind of
Mhm.
brands, who now are spending, say, just spending money already for the past 2 to 3 years, and now are
Right.
looking to optimize the value out of it, right?
Mhm.
So if I may, I just, given your experience and given the kind of brands you work with, I just like you to give 3 pointers to these two groups of brands that we
Mhm.
see on Shopify and e-commerce, on if they are launching now or they've been in the market for 3 years. What are the top three things they should take care of from a CRO
Mhm.
perspective, or overall business e-commerce perspective? Then that'll be great,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah. The first thing I would say that these brands do is to start talking to their customers. Involve their customers in their site optimization. That generally looks like user testing. And if you're unfamiliar with what user testing is, it's sending consumers or those who match your ideal customer profile to your site and asking them to complete some high level tasks and then recording their screen and their audio and asking these people to talk out loud about the experience they're having. And you're going to learn so much. You're going to get so many insights because you're used to, again, looking at these visitors as a number in analytics. And that tells you what they do. It doesn't tell you what they're thinking. And what you're going to find out is what information is missing. What questions do they have that you aren't answering on your website? That's going to be the first thing I would suggest.
Hmm. Yeah.
And most
Okay.
people think user testing is very expensive. It really doesn't need to be. In fact,
Mhm.
we have a tool. It's called User Input. It's at userinput.io, where we have really tried to make this as accessible as possible. So for a couple of $100, you can get a handful of people to do videos of them
Nice.
on your site. So
Mhm.
we're making it more accessible now. The second thing I would say goes back to a lot of what we talked about today. I would immediately stop discounting, stop running sales, and and instead think about how you can add instead of subtract. Right. So I think that's a huge mistake I see quite often, and it's maybe not something you can do overnight. You can't
Yeah.
just turn it off,
Yeah.
but you should start weaning it out. Meaning, maybe you only have one sale a year or, two sales a year, but you start to kind of do less and less of it. And as your sales continues to grow, you will eventually not need to run sales anymore. Some of the most successful brands I know don't run any sales, or they run one sale a year that is tied to something around their core values, right? So maybe they are really into, maybe they're a veteran in the US here. Maybe they were in the military, they're a veteran. Maybe they only do a sale on Veterans Day because it's core to who they are, right?
Makes
It's
sense.
not
Yeah.
about anything other than
Yeah.
celebrating veterans, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So find a cause if you need to do that. But first, I would say stop discounting and start adding value, right?
Yeah.
Number three, what I would recommend is that you go out and you get this book and you
Yeah.
really start to learn a little bit more about how you should be thinking about optimization instead of worrying about a checklist. There are too many checklists out there, and there's not enough philosophy around why you would even follow the checklist. So start there. You can go to thegood.com, thegood.com/book, and get an ebook copy, or happy to have one sent to you. I sign every book that goes out via our site. It's also, of
Nice.
course, available on Amazon and dozens of other places online. So feel free to also email me if you have any questions on anything I talked about today. John, Jon, at thegood.com. I try to read and respond to every email. Nobody's abused it yet, so I'll have faith that nobody will is listening today. But by all means, if you have a question, want to get in touch, feel free to email me.
Yeah, guys, and he does listen, right? I can tell you that he does respond. I reached out to him in some different mediums, but he does, and as you can see very well, he's very humble and very gracious with his time. So, John, thank you so much. I think this definitely was far, far better than what I had expected it to be, because thoroughly enjoyed the topics, hearing your perspective, and on each of them you had something very different to add, which is not very common, which people kind of don't talk about it, because again, people talking about pop-ups, right, they would always say that, hey, I like it, I don't like it, but they would not give a reason. They would not know the impacts and the long-term effects of it. So I think this has been extremely enlightening for me, and I'm not going to tell you, but I'm going to steal a lot of those lines in different conversations
Hey,
somewhere. So
love it.
yeah. Yeah. And again, thank you so much. We would love to do this again sometime, and I wish you all the best with your book. The work that you guys are doing at the Good is amazing. Anyways, really nice. So guys, do reach out to them if you're a brand looking for some help. CRO, you know who to talk to. And if we can help you with some part of work at Kui, get in touch. But John, a pleasure, and
Thank you
thank you
so
so
much for
much.
having me. It's a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, and make sure just for everybody, we'll do this again soon, John, whenever he can give us more time. But again,
Mhm.
really appreciate your time, John. Thank you so much.
All right.